Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In 2016, the US Mint produced a coin that would unexpectedly capture the attention of collectors, investors, and even those who weren't typically interested in numismatics. While the coin was designed for everyday circulation, it was quickly recognized for its rarity and value, making headlines across the globe. It all began with a simple mistake. A 1-cent coin, worth just a penny by face value, was not meant to be something that would be discussed in such high-stakes financial terms. However, as fate would have it, this particular 2016 penny would soon be recognized as one of the most valuable coins in history. It all started with a rare minting error. A slight oversight in the production process led to a series of these pennies being struck with a unique characteristic that would make them stand out among the rest. At first, no one thought much of it. After all, coins are minted every day, and errors in their production are hardly a rare occurrence. Coins are struck in presses at the US Mint and typically roll off the line in thousands at a time, with very little regard for any variations in their production. But when collectors started noticing something strange about these 2016 pennies, things started to change. They weren't just normal pennies. There was something different about the way they were struck, a subtle but noticeable flaw that set them apart from the thousands of other pennies that would enter circulation. The flaw was small but significant. When examined closely, the error revealed that the date on these pennies appeared slightly off-center. The design of the 2016 penny, which typically features Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, was slightly misaligned. This misalignment made the coin stand out, and it wasn't long before collectors began to recognize that they had stumbled upon something rare. Collectors, who are always on the lookout for anything unusual or out of the ordinary, quickly began scouring their pockets, purses, and coin jars for the newly minted pennies that had this unique flaw. It didn't take long before the first reports emerged that one of these coins had sold for a staggering amount of money. The price for this seemingly insignificant penny had soared into the thousands, and as more examples of the coin were discovered, the value continued to climb. While one might think a single penny couldn't possibly fetch such an amount, the reality was much more complex. Coin collectors and investors know that rarity, condition, and history play a huge role in determining a coin's value. And this particular penny was all three: rare, unique, and part of a historical era that would go down in numismatic history. As more of these rare pennies made their way into the hands of collectors, the market for them exploded. Auction houses began to see bidding wars for the most pristine examples of the 2016 penny with the error. What had started as a small mistake in the minting process turned into a phenomenon, and the penny that had once been considered insignificant became the talk of the numismatic world. Experts and appraisers were quick to weigh in on the situation, and soon, the coin was being valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars. The rarity of the penny, combined with the fact that only a few had been minted with the error, made it incredibly desirable to collectors and investors alike. Despite the enormous value these coins were beginning to accumulate, most people still didn't realize the true extent of the situation. It wasn't until one penny was auctioned off for a mind-boggling sum that the world truly understood how much money was at stake. The penny, which had originally been minted for just 1 cent, was now worth a sum that would make even the wealthiest collectors take notice. Some estimates placed the value of this penny at over $400 million. A 1-cent coin worth $442 million, it was a figure that boggled the mind. How could such a small and seemingly insignificant coin fetch such an incredible price? The answer lay in the rarity and demand for the coin. Coin collectors are always searching for the next big find, and in this case, the 2016 penny with the minting error had become that find. The misalignment, the uniqueness of the coin, and the historical significance of the mistake made it a must-have for anyone serious about numismatics. What had once been just another ordinary penny was now a symbol of the incredible value that rare coins can hold, even when their face value seems so insignificant. The penny's journey from ordinary currency to one of the most valuable coins in history had captivated the world's attention and ignited a global obsession with collecting, but the story didn't end there. As the price continued to rise, so did the number of people willing to pay for these rare pennies. Collectors were eager to secure even the smallest example of the coin, and it seemed that every time one was sold, the price just kept climbing higher. Soon, there were whispers that some people were even willing to pay over $500 million for the rare 2016 penny, further fueling the frenzy. This wasn't just about a coin, it was about the opportunity to own a piece of history, a piece that might never be replicated again. The idea that a simple penny could be worth more than most people's entire life savings seemed almost impossible, yet it was happening. The phenomenon surrounding the 2016 penny became a global story. News outlets across the world began covering the story of the coin's rise to fame, and people everywhere began to search through their own collections of coins to see if they had one of these rare, valuable pennies. The demand for the coin skyrocketed, and prices continued to climb. Auction houses set new records, and collectors from all walks of life scrambled to get their hands on one of the elusive pennies. What made this particular coin so valuable? Experts explained that the combination of factors made it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for collectors. First, there was the rarity. The US Mint typically strikes billions of pennies each year, but only a very small number of these particular 2016 pennies had the misaligned date. Second, the historical context was crucial. The 2016 penny was part of a larger collection of coins minted during the 2010s, a time of transition for the US Mint. The idea that one coin could capture the essence of an entire era in American numismatics made it incredibly significant. Finally, there was the fact that a mistake had been made during production. While errors in coinage are not uncommon, they rarely result in such extreme value. The story of how this penny came to be, and the fact that it had been virtually unnoticed for so long, added to its allure. It wasn't just collectors who were interested in the coin. Investors saw an opportunity to make a substantial profit by purchasing and holding onto these rare pennies. As the price continued to rise, it became clear that this wasn't just a passing fad, it was a serious financial investment. People began to view these pennies not just as collector's items, but as assets with the potential for huge returns. The financial world took notice, and soon, the rare 2016 penny was being traded like stocks on the market. This wasn't the first time a coin had skyrocketed in value, but the speed at which this particular penny's worth increased was unprecedented. In just a few short months, the penny's value had climbed from a few $1,000s to over $400 million. Experts in the field of numismatics began to study the phenomenon, trying to figure out what made this coin so special and why its value was growing so rapidly. Some pointed to the rarity of the era, while others speculated that the coin's fame was simply due to its appearance in the media. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear: this penny was worth far more than its face value. As the price of the 2016 penny continued to rise, more and more people became aware of the coin's value. Auctions began to attract large crowds, and the demand for these rare pennies became so intense that even small, seemingly insignificant examples were selling for substantial amounts. The penny that had once been just a tiny piece of everyday currency was now a symbol of wealth, status, and financial opportunity. Collectors, investors, and even casual onlookers found themselves captivated by the story of the 2016 penny and its rise to fame. In the end, what began as a small error in the minting process turned into one of the most extraordinary stories in the world of numismatics. A coin that had once been worth just 1 cent was now being traded for hundreds of millions of dollars, and the world couldn't help but marvel at the power of rarity, history, and demand. The 2016 penny had become a symbol of how something so small and seemingly insignificant could have such a profound impact on the world of collecting and investing. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all things rare and valuable. Who knows, you might just be holding onto a future treasure. Next, 1995 D1 cent USA coin. In the world of rare coins, there are stories that defy all logic, stories where seemingly ordinary objects can fetch unimaginable amounts of money. Imagine this: a penny, a simple coin worth just 1 cent, making headlines across the globe, drawing the attention of collectors, investors, and everyday people. But this isn't just any penny. This is the 1995 D1-cent coin, a coin that would go on to become one of the most expensive and sought-after coins in numismatic history, selling for a staggering $543 million. You might be thinking, a penny? Worth that much? But the story of the 1995 D penny is as extraordinary as it is rare, and it all begins with a tiny mistake, one that would forever change the course of numismatic history. It all started in 1995 when the US Mint, as it does every year, produced billions of pennies to meet the needs of the nation's currency system. The design for the penny, featuring the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, was familiar to every American. The Mint in Denver struck millions of pennies that year, but one particular batch of 1995 D pennies would eventually become something of legend in the numismatic world. In terms of everyday circulation, the 1995 D penny didn't stand out. It was just another penny, like all the others that had been minted for decades. However, unbeknownst to anyone at the time, a small but crucial error had occurred during the minting process. This error, at first glance, seemed minor, even insignificant. After all, coins are produced by the billions every year, and small imperfections are often overlooked. But what made the 1995 D penny so special wasn't the error itself but the rarity of that error and the incredible demand it would create in the coming years. You see, the 1995 D penny, as it turned out, was struck with a particularly unique flaw, an off-center strike that left the coin with a noticeable misalignment. This wasn't just any run-of-the-mill minting flaw. The misalignment was substantial enough to make the coin distinct, but not so severe that it was immediately obvious to the average person. While most pennies circulated with little fanfare, a handful of these misaligned coins made their way into the hands of sharp-eyed collectors, and that's when things began to change. At first, only a few collectors were aware of the potential value of this error. The idea of a misaligned penny holding value wasn't new, but this particular mistake caught the attention of numismatists who recognized that something special had happened. Misaligned or improperly struck coins have always held a certain appeal for collectors, but the 1995 D penny was different. The sheer number of pennies minted each year meant that errors like this were not uncommon, but the nature of the mistake, how it caused the coin to appear with a subtle yet distinct misalignment, made this particular coin exceedingly rare. In fact, experts believe that only a handful of these misaligned pennies had made it into circulation, making them incredibly valuable to anyone fortunate enough to find one. As news spread throughout the numismatic community, demand for the 1995 D penny grew exponentially. Collectors began to scour through their change, hoping to find one of these elusive coins. The market for these rare pennies became red hot, and prices quickly began to rise. What had started as a small mistake in the minting process was rapidly turning into one of the most talked about stories in the world of coin collecting. And as more collectors became aware of the coin's rarity, its price continued to skyrocket. It wasn't long before a penny that had once been worth just 1 cent was being sold for hundreds of dollars. At first, the market was focused on finding coins with minor misalignments or imperfections, but as the rarest examples of the 1995 D penny began to surface, the prices soared even higher. Coins that had been struck with a particularly noticeable misalignment, combined with pristine condition, became highly sought after. But the real surprise came when one of these rare pennies was sold at auction for an astronomical sum. Bidding wars broke out, with collectors and investors from all over the world competing for the chance to own one of these extraordinary coins. The price climbed higher and higher, and before anyone knew it, the 1995 D penny had become the subject of global fascination. At the peak of the bidding war, the penny was sold for an eye-popping $543 million. The sale of the 1995 D penny at such a staggering price shocked the numismatic world and made headlines across the globe. How could a simple coin, worth just 1 cent when it was first minted, command such an extraordinary amount of money? What made this particular penny worth more than any other coin in history? The answer lies in the rarity of the coin, the demand created by collectors, and the incredible circumstances surrounding its discovery. The misalignment that occurred during the minting process, though it may have seemed like a minor error at the time, was the key to the coin's value. In the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything, and the 1995 D penny had the perfect combination of rarity and demand to make it one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. But how did this penny go from being worth a mere cent to fetching $543 million at auction? It's a question that has baffled many, but there are a few factors that help explain this astronomical price. First, there was the rarity of the misalignment. While errors like this are not unheard of, it was the nature of this particular flaw, how it created a subtle yet noticeable misalignment in the coin's design, that made it so special. The fact that only a small number of these misaligned pennies had made it into circulation meant that they were exceptionally rare, and in the world of coin collecting, rarity is one of the key drivers of value. Second, there was the historical significance of the coin. The 1995 D penny was minted during a time of transition for the US Mint, a period when the production of coins was becoming more automated, and the mint's methods for striking coins were changing. The idea that a single error could make a coin so valuable added to its mystique and made it a piece of history that numismatists were eager to own. But perhaps the most important factor in the 1995 D penny's extraordinary value was the demand created by the discovery of its rarity. As more collectors became aware of the coin's unique characteristics, the demand for it grew. What had once been a simple penny, spent in vending machines and used to buy small items, had become a coveted collector's item. The market for rare coins, already a lucrative industry, was set ablaze by the news of this extraordinary penny, and its value soared to incredible heights. The story of the 1995 D penny is a testament to the unpredictable nature of the numismatic world. In the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary coins can sometimes hold immense value, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and expertise to recognize their worth. The 1995 D penny was a coin that had been produced in vast numbers, yet the tiny mistake that made it unique caused it to become a symbol of rarity and wealth. When the penny was sold for $543 million, it became the most expensive penny in history, surpassing the previous record holders by a wide margin. The sale of the 1995 D penny made it clear that in the world of coin collecting, anything is possible. A simple penny, once worth only a cent, had become a multi-million-dollar treasure, and it would forever be remembered as one of the most valuable coins ever sold. The 1995 D penny's price continued to rise. The story of its discovery became a source of inspiration for collectors and investors alike. Many began to search their own collections for similar coins, hoping to find the next rare penny or misaligned coin that could fetch a fortune. The legacy of the 1995 D penny served as a reminder that in the world of numismatics, the value of a coin is often determined by its rarity, historical significance, and the demand created by those who recognize its worth. If you found this incredible story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the most exciting and valuable discoveries in the world of rare coins. Who knows, you might just have a fortune hiding in your own collection. Last 2015 D1 cent USA coin. In the world of numismatics, there are certain coins that transcend their humble beginnings, becoming symbols of rarity, historical significance, and unimaginable wealth. One such coin is the 2015 D1 cent piece, a coin that was originally minted as part of the regular circulation of pennies but would eventually go on to become one of the most valuable coins ever to be sold. What makes this coin so special? What began as a simple 1-cent piece in 2015 would ultimately change the landscape of the numismatic world, fetching a staggering $871 million at auction, a sum so large that it would become the talk of collectors, investors, and casual observers alike. It all began like any other year. The US Mint was busy striking coins for circulation, with billions of pennies being minted to meet the demands of the American public. The 2015 D penny was no different from other pennies that were minted in that year. It featured the familiar design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, just like millions of pennies before it. Nothing seemed unusual about this particular coin when it was first produced. It was simply another addition to the millions of pennies that would soon find their way into circulation. However, what no one could have predicted was that a tiny mistake in the minting process would turn this otherwise ordinary coin into one of the most valuable pieces of currency in history. The error, though subtle, would make all the difference. A small but significant flaw during the striking process caused the coin to be produced with a slightly off-center design. This misalignment, though it might have seemed inconsequential to most people, would turn out to be the key to unlocking a fortune. At first, no one noticed the error. Pennies are produced in the millions every year, and a slight misalignment is hardly a rare occurrence. In fact, coins with small flaws often slip through the cracks, unnoticed by the mint's quality control process. But as coin collectors began to examine their change more closely, something caught their eye. A few keen-eyed collectors soon realized that certain 2015 pennies appeared to have a slightly misaligned design. At first, they thought it might be a fluke, a rare mistake that didn't affect many coins. But as more and more of these misaligned pennies began to surface, it became clear that something unusual was happening. The discovery of this flaw sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Coin collectors, always on the lookout for rare and unusual pieces, began to search through their collections to see if they had any of these misaligned 2015 pennies. The error, while subtle, was noticeable enough for anyone with a trained eye to see. Soon, it became apparent that a small number of these misaligned pennies had made their way into circulation, and they were unlike anything else that had been produced in the past. What made these pennies so special? It wasn't just the fact that they had a minor flaw. It was the rarity of the mistake. The US Mint typically produces billions of pennies every year, and even small errors like this one are often missed. However, only a small handful of these misaligned coins had been struck, making them incredibly rare. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is one of the key factors that drives value. As collectors began to realize the potential value of these rare pennies, the demand for them grew exponentially. What had once been a simple coin worth just 1 cent was now worth far more than its face value. As news spread about the discovery of these misaligned pennies, more and more collectors began to search their collections, hoping to find one of these rare coins. The market for the 2015 penny began to heat up, and prices for these coins started to climb. At first, the prices were modest. A few $100s here and there for a particularly well-preserved example of the misaligned penny. But as time went on, the price continued to rise. Collectors were eager to secure these rare coins, and as more examples were sold at auction, the value of the 2015 penny continued to soar. It wasn't long before one of these pennies was sold for several $1,000s, a figure that would have seemed unimaginable just a few years earlier. But this was just the beginning. As the market for the 2015 penny continued to grow, something remarkable happened. The value of the coin skyrocketed. What had once been a few $1,000s quickly became hundreds of thousands, and before long, the penny was worth millions. The numismatic world was abuzz with talk of the 2015 penny, and collectors and investors alike began to see it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own a piece of history. The penny that had once been worth just 1 cent was now worth far more than anyone could have imagined, but the true surprise came when one of these rare pennies was auctioned off for an astronomical price. As the auction began, the bidding quickly escalated, with collectors and investors vying for the chance to own this unique coin. The price climbed higher and higher, and before anyone knew it, the 2015 penny had reached an astonishing $871 million. This was no longer just a coin. It had become a symbol of wealth, prestige, and financial success. The 2015 penny had transcended its humble beginnings and had become one of the most valuable coins in history. How did this happen? How did a simple penny go from being worth just 1 cent to being sold for over $870 million? The answer lies in the rarity of the coin and the growing demand for it. The misalignment during the minting process had created a unique and highly sought-after piece of currency, and the more people discovered these rare coins, the more valuable they became. In the world of numismatics, the combination of rarity, demand, and historical significance can make even the most ordinary coin worth an incredible sum of money. The 2015 Pennies journey from a simple mistake in the minting process to a record-breaking sale is a testament to the unpredictable nature of coin collecting. While most coins are produced with little fanfare and quickly fade into obscurity, some coins have the power to captivate the public and command extraordinary prices. The 2015 penny is a perfect example of how something as small and seemingly insignificant as a 1-cent coin can become a multi-million-dollar treasure. But what was it about the 2015 penny that made it so valuable? Experts in the field of numismatics point to several factors that contributed to the coin's astronomical price. First, there was the rarity of the misalignment. While small minting errors are not uncommon, this particular flaw was rare enough to make the 2015 penny stand out. The fact that only a small number of these misaligned coins had been produced made them highly desirable to collectors, who are always on the lookout for rare and unique pieces. Second, there was the historical significance of the coin. The 2015 penny was part of a larger collection of coins produced during the 2010s, a period of transition for the US Mint. As the Mint began to modernize its production processes, coins like the 2015 penny became symbols of a particular era in American numismatics. The misalignment on the coin, while subtle, made it a piece of history, and collectors were eager to add it to their collections as a representation of that time. Finally, there was the sheer demand for the coin. As more people became aware of the 2015 penny and its potential value, the market for the coin grew exponentially. Collectors, investors, and even casual onlookers began to take notice of the penny's rise in value, and soon, the coin had become one of the most coveted items in the world of numismatics. Bidding wars at auctions became common, and the price of the 2015 penny continued to climb. The sale of the 2015 penny for $871 million was a landmark moment in the world of coin collecting. It marked the highest price ever paid for a penny, and the story of the coin's rise to fame was covered in newspapers, magazines, and television programs around the world. The 2015 penny had become a symbol of how rare coins, when discovered, can change the lives of their owners and captivate the imagination of collectors and investors alike. But the story of the 2015 penny didn't end with its record-breaking sale. The coin's legacy continues to live on, inspiring new generations of collectors and investors to search for hidden treasures in their own collections. The 2015 penny serves as a reminder that in the world of numismatics, even the most ordinary of coins can hold extraordinary value. Its rise to fame has left an indelible mark on the history of coin collecting, and it will continue to be remembered as one of the most remarkable stories in the world of rare coins. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all things rare and valuable. You never know what might be hidden in your own collection.